Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the GCSE Design Technology NEA support event for this year. We'll get straight into things because there's quite a lot to get through over the next hour. We've got Everett Alibaba and Kim Hansen who are online who are going to be answering your questions today. So any questions, if you feed through to those. But as I said, there's quite a lot to get through. I won't talk extensively about myself. I am Ben Price, Assistant Principal Moderator, Assistant Principal Examiner for GCSE Design Technology. This session is designed for teachers delivering the Pearson Edexcel GCSE Design Technology specification. During the session, we're going to review feedback from moderators and examine examples of student work from the 2024 submission. In this session, we're going to review the NEA sample work, examine how the standard has or has not been met, link back to the delivery guide and the assessment criteria grids to illustrate how best to achieve the correct standard, avoiding any misconceptions for both students and teachers. Considering good and best practice provides sufficient guidance to leave you feeling confident about your NEA moderations in 2025 and offer an opportunity to ask any or our experienced trainer questions about the moderation process. Looking back at 2024, we're in the third year of using our learner work transfer system and digital-only submissions. The vast majority of centres produce candidates' folios that showed a range of approaches connected to the contextual challenges, correctly named the candidate files for the LWT sample requested, accessed all the assessment criteria, made high-quality products that offered a solution to the problem identified, and worked at a GCSE standard. Some centres started to use and acknowledge AI tools this year to support candidate portfolios, awarded marks during centre assessment that were outside of the tolerance for aligning to the national standards for GCSE design technology, and saw regressions, did not internally standardise their department staff centre assessment prior to submission, causing some discrepancies, used a variety of file names for the LWT candidate sample requested, and awarded high marks for candidate work with little demand for Key Stage 4. Some quick fixes for 2025 submissions. Learner transfer system. Centres need to use the naming conventions for candidate evidence with the examples below. Moderators have got tens of centres to look through and to moderate, and when we dip into a centre, it makes it so much easier for those moderation to take place if the candidates have got the right order and the centre numbers and candidate numbers are in the right order with the right naming convention. It makes things a lot easier. Also, there have been some issues where candidate numbers have been wrong and very similar to or exactly the same as another candidate, which takes time to unpick. So please double check those before they come out to us. So use of the correct cab. Few centres still use the cabs, which were the COVID-19 mitigations, which were out of 88 instead of 100. We have now got rid of didn't see any last year from the PDF versions from 2019. Use the Excel spreadsheets, which do the additions for you. Include information to aid moderation in the cabs. Page references and comments help the moderators to understand where evidence is located and form a better judgment. So if there's any work that's in a not in a normal place, or it may seem normal for you, but it might not be normal for everybody else, please signpost areas of the NEA to the moderator using the cab with the page references. We don't need copious amounts of notes or comments, and please don't copy and paste the assessment criteria, but a few notes just to help kind of guide the moderator is useful. Work with a colleague to transfer the marks from the cabs to our online system for submission. This is often where administration errors occur. Don't really need to explain that anymore. We do see that did happen last year, where the number that we get doesn't correlate with the number on the cab, or the number gets put on and the cab was then changed later. We don't know which way around. So the number in the cab is the one that's usually king, because that's the one that's kind of got the breakdown of the marks. So you may get an email from your moderator to say, please, can you update those marks onto Edexcel Online? Submit your portfolios as PDF documents, not PowerPoints. PowerPoints are quite chunky, quite large, which takes more time to upload, and the documents are more secure with the video and audio functionality will remain the same. Including photos of making processes is really key and may be specific to our exam board, but photographic evidence helps the moderators to support your marks that you've given the candidates. Include more evidence to show how a student has made that product, include the decisions they've made and the iterations, the mistakes, any safe practices, and that accuracy, which you can get from the pictures as the model's gone along, as opposed to right at the very end with 2 or 3 pictures. In this section, we have sourced and referenced a range of portfolios from the following pool. Ones that scored in the very top mark band, so grade 9s in 2024. Ones that scored around 70 marks in total. Ones that scored around 50 marks in total. Ones that scored around 30 marks in total. So you will see a range based on what we actually took in last year, what we saw, and you can reference that against your centres and the kind of level that you're pitching at. Whilst we look at evidence from these portfolios against the assessment criteria grids, it is important to remember that the evidence for each grid is not always grouped together in a portfolio, nor in a specific order, and that the order that we deliver the course in is only following each assessment criteria grid in turn. A portfolio that scored 50 might be stronger or weaker in any one grid compared to the overall performance of the portfolio. We've redacted portfolios to protect the identity of learners and schools. So if you see your work from your centre, please don't identify yourself as such during this session. We have tried to provide evidence from a range of specialisms, different schools, different student profiles, such. It's important to focus on the characteristics of what you are seeing and not the specific tasks or the activities carried out by the student. There is no benefit to counting the number of pages or number of ideas or steps for any specific activity, as it all depends on the content of the candidate. We'll start with 1.1, investigation of needs and research for 8 marks. In this section, candidates are expected to identify and assess the needs and the wants of the end user and client, outline a design problem from the contextual challenges provided, and identify a need for a product that can solve the problem. Candidates could investigate existing products, looking at form and function, amongst other aspects, carry out a range of research to gather relevant information that will inform the next section, the design specification for the prototype or the product, making reference to the contextual challenge. You'll notice the contextual challenge is throughout everything that we talk about in the assessment criteria. So some examples. Many centres are getting this section to at least a level 2. One aspect that might elude the candidates is the user and their wants and needs. So these examples show good practice. The candidate produces a developed investigation through a broad range of issues, which is comprehensive and analysed in detail. There's only a snapshot seen here, but obviously there were several pages, so you get a good flavour of the project. Relevant design possibilities are identified, looking at identifying the context, the users, looking at types of aircraft, market research, existing products, materials, mechanisms, finishes, and manufacturing processes, which are all fully justified in relation to the contextual challenge. So that's bullet point 1 at level 3. User needs and wants are seen here and developed and drawn from early discussions with the client, which was bullet point 2, level 3. The work is an example of a comprehensive and fully developed links between design requirements and the contextual challenge, with research clearly related to STEM, from which is bullet point 3, level 3. Level 3 is appropriate here. This gives you a flavour of the other pages. The candidate started the contextual challenge with an in-depth look into charities and fundraising. They found a live brief with the client, which was CRY, cardiac risk in the young, which was bullet point 1, level 3. Primary research is included with a genuine interview with feedback from the client being throughout the investigation and the folder that followed. This is another example of a level 3, looking in depth at the contextual challenge and finding a need from the user to develop and work on for the project. Level 3 is appropriate here. This is an example of a level 1 type of work. Here the candidate hasn't made any connection to the mood board and it serves no real purpose. They did go on to investigate STEM as a theme, so there really was no need for this work to have been included in the folder as it concerned another contextual challenge. Moving on to 1.2 specification for 8 marks. In this section, candidates are expected to produce a design brief that addresses all the needs identified in the previous section, produce a product specification which should include statements that are technical, measurable, and are justified, not include closed statements regarding an already determined product design, and consider a range of criteria. The design brief is in the left-hand bottom corner. Generally sound, although it is fairly lengthy, quite narrow and closed, and doesn't really commit to any real intention. So it was a bullet point 1 level 2. They produce a mostly developed range of specification points that are realistic, with some measurable points, and although not mostly measurable, it sits in that middle box at bullet point 2 level 2. They make generally sound justifications to the specification points, which is bullet point 3 level 2, which sits the work at level 2 overall. This is all about best fit. Candidates produced a design brief that is clearly linked to the contextual challenge. Specification points included are justified and linked to the requirements from the user and linked to the interview in section 1.1. However, the specification points tended to lack very much detail about the performance requirements for the product, so a bullet point 1 level 1 is a better fit. Not all the specification points were very detailed, technical and measurable to be awarded the level 3 assessment, so a bullet point 2 level 2 is more appropriate. A mid-level 2 overall is appropriate for this section. The design brief and specification focuses on commemoration of a religious event rather than stating what the product will be hoping to achieve. This is a very open brief. The product could be anything, but is best as a bullet point 1 level 1. The specification points are numbered for later use and considers the contextual challenge and the client user. The specification does link back to research and the theme. However, there's a basic limited range of the points that are measurable and do not have much detail to them. Bullet point 2 level 1. The justification column looks promising, but further inspection sees the candidate has kept comments very simple and open in nature, which best identifies as a bullet point 3 level 1. A mark at the top level of level 1 is best fit for this work. On to design ideas, 2.1 for 8 marks. In this section, candidates are expected to produce a range of design ideas, 3 or 4 ideas, that address the design brief and the design specification. Consider a range of issues, including budget and aesthetics. The design ideas should explore a potential range of different approaches, including materials, components, processes, and techniques. On first glance, it looks like the candidates produced 4 separate ideas. However, on further inspection, they've designed one idea broken down into 4 different subsystems as component parts. For this reason, the body of the work shows a range of ideas rather than a wide range of design ideas. So it was a bullet point 1 level 2. Obviously, if they're all different and they were following the same style, then you'd be looking at a level 3. They make a generally sound consideration of user wants and needs through their user comments highlighted in the red box, which is a bullet point 2, level 2. And they make sound understanding of relevant materials, processes and techniques through the very comprehensive annotation, which they've signposted, which is a bullet point 3, level 2. Although the work looks more like a level 3, due to the nature of the design ideas being one design and not 4, it is best fit in the level 2, but at the upper end. For this example, there's a range of 4 ideas that have been drawn as freehand sketches, and there are 2 shown here. This was a bullet point 1, level 2. There are some comments that link back to the user needs and wants, but they are missing from the last 2 ideas, so a bullet point 2, level 1 is appropriate. There is some reference to some specification points suggested for possible materials, processes, construction, with the information getting vaguer or is omitted from the other ideas. So that was a bullet point 3, level 1, which is appropriate. Overall, a mark at the lower end of level 2 is best fit. Color coding positives and negatives and linking back to the specification points in more depth for the user needs wants would perhaps have allowed for a higher assessment. Also, the fact it started to drop off over the body of the work also meant that it had to be kind of evened out. Some textiles. Candidate produces 4 corset designs that bear no relation to the contextual challenge. Candidate clearly decided they were going to make a corset and nothing was going to stop them. The design comes from the same design family. So they're all very, very similar. These are all corsets which offer little change or variation. So it was a level 1, a bullet point 1, level 1. There is little reference to the specification, and they do make reference to it. The points were fairly generic, so offer little guidance in design. The candidate does make some linking to the client user needs and wants, but the work is limited. I think you'll agree. Bullet point 2, level 1. The candidate has a basic understanding of materials. There's no mention of boning or lace, nor any components, and so it's not worthy of credit. Bullet point 3, level 0. And therefore a mid-level 1 mark of 2 is appropriate here. On to review of initial ideas for 8 marks. In this section, candidates are expected to conduct a review or analysis of their initial ideas against the design brief and the product specification. They should seek client and user feedback to assist with their decisions. It's always best to have a separate page for the review rather than having comments on the previous design pages. This section is best concluded with a summary or evaluation, which is the second bullet point, to determine which design should be taken forward into development. The candidates produced a page per idea reviews. Each idea includes a detailed analysis of that idea with a summary of each idea linking back to the specification points and clients' needs and wants. So that one was a bullet point 1, level 3. Clear connections have been made with the design brief and the contextual challenge. Each review statement is evaluated with an idea summary on each page, which was the bullet point 2, level 3. And therefore top marks, level 3, awarded for this section. This candidate produces a review in a tabular format where each idea is reviewed in some detail. They produce a generally developed analysis against the specification, so bullet point 1, level 2, and pull out key points which are RAG rated with ideas and future modifications drawn from them, backed up by user comments, which is nice to see. Although they're bullet pointed, they are fairly simple. They form a competent evaluation overall, and the candidate gets a bullet point 2, level 2. Due to the concept of the project, one idea being made out of 4 subsystems, it wouldn't gain more than a level 2, whereas 3 designs of a joystick controller would. The work sits at level 2 at the top end. The review covers ideas 1 to 4 in a tabular format. The analysis is superficial and offers nothing tangible to hang on to going into the development section. The specification points are missing and only offer headings which are difficult to see what is they're comparing the designs to. The candidate makes some simplistic answers, yes, no, silk, polyester, which are statements of fact, but again, do not build on the statements with any reflection. So that was a bullet point 1, level 1. There's no evaluation, conclusions, or summary provided here, but the evaluation statements feel like a level 1, basic, and they lead to limited refinements and limited understanding of the design considerations. So that was a bullet point 2, level 1. And a level 1 is appropriate overall here. Two point 3, development of design ideas into a chosen design for 12 marks. In this section, candidates are expected to modify their design ideas to produce a final design proposal which meets the design brief and design specification. Make models and/or CAD simulations to be used to test the features of the design ideas. Produce a presentation drawing of the final chosen design to enable third-party manufacture. Further research should be conducted to help develop the ideas, and the development or the iteration of the ideas should consider the whole product rather than considering parts in isolation. The modelling demonstrated by the candidate is very high in this section, includes CAD SketchUp, laser cutting of refinements, has all been used, redesigns due to improvement is well documented, with a bullet point 2, level 4. Some drawings appear out of sequence as finished case designs, but the quality is good. There is some good detail about the coin design and why the token system has been rejected for this product. It would have been good to include some more programming details, but the microbit in this section, rather than later in the portfolio, but the introduction to it, the introduction to its use can be clearly seen in the photos. The additional research into it allows a bullet point 1, level 4. There is enough detail in the CAD drawings to enable a third person to attempt to make the product, so bullet point 3, level 4 is appropriate, and level 4 is appropriate overall. Again, this is a snapshot. They did produce more than 3 pages. In the development section, the candidates use some small images from research to help explain each iteration seen. This, with the modelling research into various techniques, has allowed a bullet point 1, level 3. Card modelling, laser cutter, 3D modelling, and a different laser cut model is shown and detailed by the candidates. They've used SketchUp for CAD modelling to further develop aspects of the Ramadan calendar, so bullet point 2, level 3. Colour schemes for the calendar have also been included. The final design has been produced using CAD. Higher marks have been awarded by including technical information for third-party manufacture and a detailed cutting list alongside the CAD files, so bullet point 3, level 2. Mid-band level 3 has been awarded as best fit, as you can clearly see the development from design drawings to the chosen idea. So appropriate research takes place across the body of work, looking at decoration development with some active research, trialing processes and techniques. Bullet point 1, level 2. The candidate started with the camel, but quickly discards this and moves on, disregarding the contextual challenge, and forges a new path, but makes tenuous links to pom-poms being part of the festival, which was mentioned back in their specification. There is use of CAD through Texoft 2D design to produce a button design with some sound refinements through decoration development, with active research and physical testing of the samples and a toile, and simulating these with iteration developments made to the CAD model. Commercial patterns used, and changes are made to the neckline across the top of the bust to a sweetheart profile, so bullet point 2, level 2 was awarded. Chosen designs detailed are generally appropriate, showing final designs, including material details, sizes, dimensions, and costings, but is missing a lay plan. So bullet point 3, level 2 was awarded here, and a overall high mark in level 2 is appropriate. for this section. Again, there was a larger body of work than we've shown you today. Into communication of design ideas for 8 marks. In this section, candidates are expected to show the use of a range of communication techniques and media to present initial design ideas and development of design ideas. The use of graphical, written, and CAD techniques are set out in 3 separate statements within this assessment criteria grid. A lack of one of the 3 techniques will challenge a candidate's ability to access all the marks at the top of the level 3 grid, and it's therefore encouraged that candidates make appropriate use of all 3 techniques within their portfolio. Communication of design ideas 2.4 can only be evidence from the candidate work that relates to the following sections and not throughout the portfolio, as often seen from centre assessors in the CABs. 2.1 design ideas, 2.3 development of design ideas into a chosen design. All communication is clear and considered. The design ideas contain good freehand 3D sketching with various other outlooks and section diagrams included. Using CAD for developing ideas has been completed well and has supported the candidate's design changes, use of electronics and circuit diagrams, both for the laser cutter work and the electronics programming work has been well documented. And so bullet points 1 and bullet point 2 were awarded a level 3 mark. All work is clear here, well organised and easy to follow. And so a high level 3 mark has been awarded for this candidate. All communication styles in this design idea and development sections are generally appropriate and show some good skills for the CAD work, supported by slightly more basic 3D sketching, colour pencil rendering. Bullet point 1 and bullet point 2 at level 2 are appropriate awarding levels. The CAD could have been enhanced with some screenshots of the various models made by CAD and laser cut during the model making stage. A similar page can be seen later in the portfolio, but this is outside the communication assessment range. All work written is clear, it's well organised and easy to follow. A bullet point 3 level 2 is appropriate and has been awarded at the higher end of the level 2 box. There is appropriate use of graphical techniques and written elements seen in this work. The student is dyslexic and as noted in the CAB by the centre, but doesn't affect their assessment. A bullet point 1 level 2 mark. They've been able to communicate design ideas to a point, including some good use of CAD. However, some of the CAD drawings I've seen in the portfolio are from a library and aren't assessed as the work of the candidate. Bullet point 2 level 2. Do look out for that. A level 2 mid-mark is most appropriate as a best fit for this work. Review of chosen design, 6 marks. In this section, candidates are expected to conduct a review or analysis of their final chosen design against the product specification and design brief. Consider materials and techniques and processes needed to make the product and seek client user feedback to assist with the review. It's always best to have separate pages for the review rather than having the comments on the development pages. This section is best concluded with a summary or evaluation, second bullet point, to round up the development and developmental changes that have occurred since the initial design. The review of the chosen design can be seen here. This includes feedback from the client, with some specification points having been included as review points, which are seen in the blue text. Photos are used to support the chosen design progression. The candidates included generally well developed and competent analysis and evaluation. So bullet point 1 and bullet point 2 at a level 2, and has been awarded a high level 2 mark overall. A high level mark would mean would need more depth and contextual challenge related comments. Clear refinements to the final design are not very well stated. Also remember, you don't need to mention and make reference to every single specification point, just the ones that they're looking at across their development section. The candidates missed the point of the page here and used it to show details of the final design, but what is creditable is in the blue boxes. They've analysed the final design across the body of the development section in relation to the iterations and the developments. However, analysis is superficial as it only covers a limited range of factors, and so was a bullet point 1, level 1. They go on to evaluate the final design in relation to the design brief. However, these are basic and do not relate to the specification points, nor does it include any user group feedback or material or manufacturer choices. So bullet point 2, level 1 was awarded, and a high level 1 is appropriate here. What looks like a generally developed review is sadly lacking when the right-hand side of the box is all retrospective rather than following the design development. What is left is a limited and offers little analysis of the changes that were made and how these now meet or fail to meet the focus specification points. And so a bullet point 1, level 1 was awarded. The evaluative conclusions on each page of the development, however, are helpful here to secure a mark at the top of level 1, bullet point 2, level 1. And we move into section 3, which is the make. 3.1a, manufacture, selection of materials, 8 marks. In this section, candidates are expected to consider the materials and components and their appropriate properties that would be used for the manufacture of the prototype or product. It is recommended that students produce evidence for the selection of the materials and components parts that they are about to use in their making of the product, as this will provide an opportunity to demonstrate technical language and a full understanding of the product they intend to make. This work is detailed and comprehensive, which elicits effective selection and appropriate materials and reasoning, which is justified, valid, and fully appropriate for the prototype. Bullet point 1, level 3. The candidate shows a sound understanding of material properties, but the work lacks higher assessment as it draws on a limited number of properties. So bullet point 2, level 2. The work sits just inside the level 3 box. Another example, consider selection of appropriate materials that's been included with suitable reasons for choice, as well as some properties. Bullet point 1, level 2. The second page contains information about paints and adhesives which are not required and can be ignored. The candidate has a good knowledge to select through appropriate materials for the final outcome, although they're not comprehensive when looking at properties. A bullet point 2, level 2 is best fit. If the candidate had included more working properties of the material selected, that would potentially allow for a level 3 mark. The basic selection of materials: blue cotton, sparkly ribbon, cotton ribbon, and these are all generally appropriate for the chosen prototype. The statements are basic, offer little, but more than basic facts. They mention some simple properties, but they don't clarify these. Although the statements are written in past tense, this is okay, as they do not need to be written before any manufacturing takes place. Bullet point 1, level 1. The candidate shows a limited understanding of the material properties of the materials used in the prototype, so a bullet point 2, level 1, and so a level 1 mark is appropriate here. They use multiple materials and component parts, and therefore a mark at the upper end of level 1 is appropriate overall. Into 3.1b, manufacture skills and processes for 16 marks. In this section, candidates are expected to consider and use the following to manufacture the prototype to a GCSE standard: materials, components and fittings, processes, tools and equipment, techniques. This is to be recorded, photographed at various stages of making, with candidate notes explaining what is happening and to include references to safety when making the product. It is expected that the product made will be suitably demanding for the GCSE level. It's clear that the candidate has made a prototype that evidences fully competent making skills. They use a wide range of skills: 3D printing, pulleys, information graphics, and electronics. So bullet point 1, level 4 was awarded here. With a fully considered selection of fixtures and fittings included universal joints, LEDs, and hinges. So bullet point 2, level 4. They show fully competent use of tools and equipment, including laser cutters, pillar drills, scroll saws, and soldering irons. Bullet point 3, level 4. Photos also exemplify safe working practices. So that was bullet point 4, level 4. And a level 4 mark at the upper end is quite clearly appropriate here. The candidate produced a prototype that demonstrates mostly competent making skills and use of tools and equipment. Bullet point 1 and bullet point 3 at level 3. As there are no photographs of the product being made, the CAB tells us that the candidate demonstrates an extremely high degree of safe working practice. And bullet point 4, level 3. Level 3 at a midpoint is most appropriate here. The candidate's made a corset which is evident of mostly competent making skills: pinning, sewing machine, seam allowance, making adjustments to client sizes, pleating, working with inner lining, and the eyelet press. Bullet point 1, level 3. They use mostly considered selection of materials, fixtures, components, and fittings, with seams and joining of fabrics to create shape, use of eyelets, and ribbon. Bullet point 2, level 3. They look to have a mostly competent use of tools, equipment, and techniques to produce the corset. Bullet point 3, level 3, and look to have demonstrated a high degree of safe working practice. Bullet point 4, level 3. A mid-band mark in the level 3 is most appropriate here. On to quality and accuracy, 3.2 for 12 marks. In this section, candidates are expected to show the quality and accuracy they've demonstrated to manufacture the sufficiently demanding product suitable for GCSE that matches the design specification. This is to be recorded, photographed as evidence for quality of making and accuracy shown in the finished prototype. This does not require any extra evidence in the portfolio if the photographic evidence from the manufacturer in 3.1b and the final photographic evidence is detailed and helps to support and agree the centre assessment. The candidate produces a fully functional prototype that includes moving parts when the joystick is moved and runway lights illuminate when the switch is turned on. The final prototype fully meets the end user needs, responds to a demanding design problem, bullet point 1, level 4, and fully meets the design specification, bullet point 2, level 4. The prototype shows a fully sound understanding of the need for accuracy, with component parts that fit tightly and mirror earlier drawings, although those were drawn following the manufacturing, which is bullet point 3, level 4. A level 4 mark at the upper end is appropriate here. The candidate produced a generally functioning prototype that adequately meets the end user needs, bullet point 1, level 2. It meets some of the specification points which were poorly written at the start, so bullet point 2, level 2 was awarded. The candidates have shown some need for accuracy, but there are aspects that could have been completed better for access to higher levels. Bullet point 3, level 2. And a level 2 mark of 6 is appropriate overall. The corset was produced by the candidate was mostly functioning prototype, which was a generally demanding project. the corset lacked boning, or the pom-poms, which link to the design to the contextual challenge. Bullet point 1, level 3. Where the specification was weak, it restricted some movement of the design and therefore mostly met the design specification. These were fairly loose specification points that were quite generic. Bullet point 2, level 3. The candidate and their garment shows a generally sound understanding of the need for accuracy. Seams are neat, pattern pieces lined up, and lining is hemmed and finished well, and they look to have generally made a good job of it. Bullet point 3, level 3. And the level 3 assessment at the midpoint mark was appropriate here. Four point 1, testing and evaluation for 6 marks. In this section, candidates are expected to test the end product, the analysis with client and user group feedback, evaluate the product against the specification and intended purpose, make reference the environmental impact of the prototype through a life cycle assessment, LCA. The test should be recorded or photographed as evidence for successfully meeting specification points and meeting the client's user needs. The candidate makes a fully developed analysis through a client review and analysis of the end user comments, and the product specification, which shows a fully considered approach to testing against measurable criteria. Bullet point 1, level 3. There is an effective evaluation of the prototype through an evaluative summary of specification, and the candidate goes on to evaluate the prototype against the contextual challenge, which was a really nice way to culminate the project and reflects on the purpose of the prototype. There's fully appropriate testing against measurable criteria, although the testing that takes place, the candidate looks at sustainability through a life cycle assessment, which is detailed and comprehensive, covering the 7 main elements, which is a bullet point 2, level 3. The centre awarded it 5 out of 6, although it would be worthy of 6 out of 6. The evaluation completed against the specification for the CRY coin drop to raise money for the charity that meets the user wants and needs. Bullet point 1, level 3. The candidates included a life cycle analysis, which references repair and disposal and is quite detailed, so was awarded a bullet point 2, level 3. There was a video of testing which was included in the learner work transfer upload, and suggestions of improvements and modifications have been included from third-party feedback. A low level 3 mark was awarded. Links to more detailed product testing could have been raised at this point to improve the mark. Generally developed analysis through fitness of purpose testing and final product quality and accuracy pages. The end user was taken into account through client feedback and user trials. The candidate takes into account the product specification through the evaluation pages. There's a generally considered approach to testing against measurable criteria across the work, which was representable of a level 2 piece of work, bullet point 1, level 2. There's a basic and limited evaluation, which is against the intended purpose of the prototype, drawing on partially appropriate conclusions from testing measurable criteria. They look at sustainability through a life cycle analysis, bullet point 2, level 1. The work lacked a more detailed evaluation, but as the specification was weak, it was hard for the candidate to justify any points in detail. A level 2 mark at the lower end was appropriate here. At this point, we've finished the presentation. I'm quite happy to take any questions from the floor. I know that Kim and Evan have been typing in the background, but if there's anything that anybody wants me to go back over, I'm quite happy to. I've got a few more slides to pick up at the end, but at this point, if there's any questions and people want to come on live, I'm quite happy to do that. Okay, I will move on. In summary, we reviewed the NEA sample work, examined how the standard has or has not been met, linked back to the delivery guide and the assessment criteria grids to illustrate how best to achieve the correct standard, avoiding misconceptions for both students and for teachers. Consider good and best practices, provide sufficient guidance to leave you feeling confident about your NEA moderation 2025, and offered an opportunity to ask our experienced trainer questions about the moderation processes. Our subject advisors are experts in their field. Everyone is online and here to support you throughout the year. Find the subject advisors for your area when you hit the link and sign up to receive regular updates for your subject advisor on qualification news and support for your subject on the link. If you want to find out any more, you can hit the link here for any professional development courses. There is an opportunity for a face-to-face session in March in London, which is face-to-face at the Strand, I believe. We are always looking for markers and moderators for GCSE and for A-level. This is a GCSE qualification. So we are looking for, if you're a specialist in metals or papers and boards or polymers or systems or textiles or timbers, or you are a master of all trades, then please do get involved and help to extend your CPD yourself, improve your teaching, improve your own marks in your centre. It's a great way to do that. That's exactly how I started. Or you might want to come and join and be a moderator, moderating samples of coursework, trying to learn the standard from within. Again, I did both, and I've worked up through marking exams for resistant materials and electronic products and graphics and timbers and systems and even on A-level as well. So it does improve your teaching. I cannot stress how useful it is, free CPD, and you get paid for it as well. If you're interested, please ping or email everyone, or there are links on the Pearson website. We got a question from Simon, I can see.
Hi, yeah. This year, when I was marking GCSE, I found the links from the delivery guide to sample pieces of work extremely useful when I was looking at individual pieces of work. My question was, is that going to be updated again this year, just to refresh it?
We will, thank you, Simon. We spent, it was this time last year, we were just getting that finished off. So good note to everybody. There are loads and loads. We've tried to flood the website to try to take some of the older bits off and put some of the new materials on. And we are looking at updating that, Simon. So yes, with some of those standardized pieces. So if you're in your centres and you're wanting to know what a level 3 mark looks like for development against a level 4 development, then you can go on and do that. You can use it as I've had a head of department had a departmental meeting today. You could use and hand over a departmental meeting to looking at the development section and doing some standardized testing and moderating of samples, and those are on there. So in answer to your question, Simon, yes, we are looking at updating those. But at the moment, that's all new stuff that went on this time last year. Any other questions at all? Quite happy to take. You will get a copy of the PowerPoints on the downloads, and you can then use that back in your centres. You may be sat around in groups now or sat on your own, but you can take that back and work through some sections. I've even heard people tell me they've used it with their students when they've had me coming through the speakers. So I do apologise, but that also might be something that might be quite useful. Your feedback matters. Following this event, you'll receive an invitation to share your thoughts about the session. Your feedback is invaluable to us as it helps us to tailor our professional development materials to better suit your needs. Please don't hesitate to let me know how you'd like to see more, what you'd like to see more of, and what areas you think could be improved, as we want to develop what we are doing that suits you and your needs. Yes, Simon, is that a hand up again?
Yeah, could I just ask one last question? My colleague and I were just discussing, are we allowed to show this to students?
I believe it's on the internet, and therefore it is accessible to students. So if it's not locked down, it is accessible to, and I have been into schools to deliver training and have seen work up on boards. Evelyn, are you there to double check that for me? Or Kim?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. I mean, these are created for teachers understanding, teachers marking. But if you think that some parts would be useful for your learners to go through to discuss certain things, that's really up to you.
I think it's useful for their own sort of their self-moderation. They can sort of look at, other, because it's one thing having a look at the exemplars. It's another thing actually seeing some up-to-date pieces of work and hearing you guys talk about it and how you mark it. I just think it's quite interesting if we were able to show it to students.
Yeah, because the stuff in your centre, you're not always sure what you got from last year, are you? Or you're not sure what the level of that is. So this is actually standardised, agreed, levelled work, and the same as the level work that's on the internet that you talked about. Obviously, you're not allowed to, in terms of the JCQ ruling, you're not allowed to mark their work and tell them what they're doing. So it's a good vehicle to help show kind of the level that they should be working at, or that you feel they could work at.
Yeah, it's really good to show them what good looks like.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Okay, I think on that note, if there's no other points or questions, I said we are always looking for moderators and markers on both GCSE and A level. But if you want to come and join and extend your knowledge and come and see that's exactly how I did it, then please do get in touch and get involved.
And just before you finish off, there is a job going at Pearson for a credible specialist, and we're just going to post now a link to the job description. The closing date is the 11th of November. If anybody is interested in joining us as a credible specialist, it is a flexible role.
Thank you, Kim.
That's good.
Okay, check the chat for the link, and best of luck. Thank you very much. Have a safe journey home, and take care. Good night.